Blue-White Breakdown is back with David Jones, as you can see, getting his morning fill of his favorite coffee, Starbucks. He's a Starbucks guy. I'm Bob Flounders. We are going to talk about some Penn State football. Dave, it's good to see you. It's been a little while. How we doing? What's new in downtown?
Have you done your homework? Your basketball coach's homework?
Yeah.
You saw that list, right?
Yeah. I threw it out, but no, I saw it. No. I know you told me somebody who wants the job, but I'm keeping that close to the vest.
There's more than one, though. There's
keeping that
more
close to the vest. We're
more
talking
than I
about
thought.
Penn State basketball job. But Dave, how are things in Downingtown?
Sunny, melting.
Yeah, this is a two-dog Blue-White Breakdown podcast. Dave's got his dog Kaiser. Greg Pickle, who you can't see, has Lola somewhere close by. He's listening in, handling a lot of the production. So it's a two-dog
I don't know where
podcast.
Kaiser is.
Huh?
I don't know where Kaiser is. I mean,
What do you mean?
I didn't sleep well last night. I literally just got up. I almost missed this.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not here.
Is he in the house?
No, Anna must have taken him out.
Oh, okay.
Or Nick. Nick's home from college, so he might have taken him out.
What are the possibility that Kaiser's just had enough of your butt? What if he just said, I'm out?
Zero. He has to be. He thinks he's a person. He loves people. It always mystifies me when people talk about their dog. The dog got out and ran away. The dog got out and ran away. What kind of dog does that? They
a dog that's not loved. A dog that's not loved.
Yes. They must hate their existence. The German Shepherds never run away. They look at you like this and like, okay, what are we doing? What are we doing now? What are we doing now? What are we doing?
If everyone looked at us like the way German Shepherds looked at you, it'd be a much happier place.
It would. That's absolutely true. Bob, you're very perceptive.
Coffee. I saw you had a little breakfast fruit. So you're ready to go?
Let's do it.
Okay, just one bit of quick news, and then we're going to get to the first thing I wanted to talk with you. Anthony Poindexter, the Purdue safety coach, made it official. He's now Penn State safeties coach and co-defensive coordinator with Brent Pry. We'll see what he can do. Penn State's clearly got some defensive issues they got to get together. He was a great player, a safety at Virginia. I think he won a Super Bowl ring with the Ravens as a late-round pick. Been at Purdue for a while. I'm sure he can recruit, or James wouldn't have it on his staff, but let's just see. He's replacing Tim Banks, who is now the Vols defensive coordinator. So I'm sure we'll hear from him via Zoom call maybe in a week or two. Hopefully, if spring practice ever gets set up, maybe we'll get to
how many let me interject a question here.
Go.
How many of these types of hires do you think when you see the hire, you think this is purely a recruiting hire?
I don't think he would ever hire a coach that wasn't, if he's not a good, like, boots on the ground recruiter, he's a good closer. In other words, whether it's Joe Moorhead or Mike Yurcich, the guys that can paint the vision and kind of close the deal along with James. So I think that's obviously got to be a huge part of it. It has to be.
I think there are times, and I don't even know if Poindexter is one of these. It just occurred to me, though, sometimes you see a hire and you're thinking, there are techniques to DB coaches and tight end coaches on a lot of these coaches, but sometimes you see them and think, this is a salesman. This is a salesman to be on the sales force. So I don't know if this is one of them. It just occurred to me that because that happens, man.
Yeah, well, he was a hell of a player at Virginia, much like Taylor Stubblefield was a hell of a receiver at Purdue, and that worked out, I would say, pretty good for Penn State in year one. And they need their safeties to play better, so I'll be curious to see, Dave, how it works out. But Dave, I want to start with, I really enjoyed what you wrote. I believe we're doing this on Wednesday around lunchtime. I like what your follow-up piece on Mike Yurcich and kind of a deep dive into
Brett Ciancia,
what kind of made his offenses tick in recent years. And one of the things I enjoyed most about it was he is a guy that is very good at fitting his talent around fitting his scheme around his talent. I had that reversed. So he's going to he's going to take what he has, the best parts of what he has, it sounds like, and then kind of design a scheme that emphasizes that. Is that correct?
Yeah, and as he has gotten older, the evidence shows. I mean, this was a metric set. It was a stat mine story. So I used Brett Ciancia from Pick Six Previews as he's going to be the Ken Pomeroy of college football. I'm convinced. I mean, the kid he's a sick young man. He loves his numbers, but I mean, he's really, really good at it. As Yurcich settled into that Oklahoma State job, and he was there for 6 seasons. It took a while to get it moving. Then they got Rudolph, who had a big arm. Do you remember Rudolph in college? Do you remember him
Mason
well?
Rudolph. Yeah, before he tangled with Jason Garrett, he was a good quarterback at Oklahoma. Not Jason Garrett, Miles Garrett. He was a very good quarterback at Oklahoma State. Very good.
Pretty big arm. Is he bigger than he looks? He doesn't strike me as.
No, he's a pretty big guy. I think the Steelers actually like him, and they're not. Once Ben does walk away, I think he might get a real shot. They've never seemed to really embrace him. They keep trying to prop up Ben. Yeah,
and then we'll give him a shot. But once they got a hold of Rudolph, the Oklahoma State offense took off, and eventually was top 5 percentile in the last 10 years in college football, not just that one season. But then they had to make do. Gundy didn't really have a talented quarterback, particularly talented quarterback in the pipeline. And they had to make do with a kid named Taylor Cornelius, who had been a walk-on. And Yurcich converted the offense to what he did best. He didn't have the big arm anymore. He made that work. Then at Texas, he went to Ohio State in 2019, but last year at Texas, I think you know about Sam Ehlinger, and not I don't know who would you compare Sam Ehlinger to who's not seen Texas, didn't see him the last couple of years.
Well, I don't know. The way that they used him, I thought they used
Will Levis,
Trace McSorley.
Yeah, he's kind of a combination of Will Levis and Trace McSorley.
Yeah.
But not a big arm, certainly. Neither was Trace, but a fearless runner. And he made it happen again with that offense. So he's done it. When I was doing the Penn State basketball coach search, and I ran into a couple guys who'd done it different ways. And when you see somebody who can make it work, make the players work rather than the system, no matter what players they have, that's a coach I want. So the evidence shows that this guy really knows what he's doing. Of course, you never know. We'll see.
Right. So let's check out Dave's story on PennLive. I highly recommend it. I thought it was good info. And Dave, if that guy is the next, who'd you say he was? The equivalent in basketball?
Ken Pomeroy.
If this guy's as good as Ken Pomeroy, you got to get in on the ground floor, man. And just kind of.
I gave him a Heisman vote, and he couldn't believe it. I mean, I met him. He lives just south of Westchester here, not very far from me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say this, even though I hate this phrase. He reached out. Did you think the era of reach out began with Paul Vigna in our office, or was it before?
When I think of Paul, I think of a lot of things. What I mostly think of is 20,000 word enterprise assignments, but that's another story for another day.
When did people first start saying they reached?
My 2 cents.
Oh my God, I forgot about my 2 cents. But when did people start saying they reached out? It's only been in the last 6-8 years, right?
Yeah.
Instead of I called him. I texted him. He texted me. He emailed me. Called me. No, there's reaching out.
Reached out.
So he did reach out. Brett Ciancia is the kid who runs Pick Six Previews. I can't recommend him enough. Really, really interesting numbers guy. And I'm not a metrics guy. Are you a metrics guy?
Not a metrics guy. I'm a Coors Light guy, Dave. That's it. Coors Light. I'm a Coors Light guy. That's it. Not metrics.
I'm a Cubs man and a Bud fan.
Dave, also nice humble brag with giving out the Heisman vote. I liked it. Well,
I thought he deserved it. I mean, we've got some guys.
You are pretty good about, you don't hand them out like bus passes. You're pretty strict with you vet everyone you give one to.
Yeah. I try to, because I think there's 25 of them in Pennsylvania, and we ought to be informed. We ought to see a breadth of football. For instance, the Pittsburgh guys, they had, at least in the old days, they had an opportunity to see 3 different leagues out there.
Yeah.
Because they could drive down and see West Virginia. You can see the whole Big 12. I always thought those guys were valuable. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. Well, it's the Blue White Breakdown with Dave Jones in his coffee mug. Just talked a little bit about Mike Yurcich. This goes right into it, Dave. I was just thinking 2021, when you think about the fact that Justin Fields has moved on, Michael Penix tore his ACL, I'm not that excited about the Big Ten quarterback class for 2021, but is Penn State maybe in better shape than we think at quarterback with a veteran like Sean Clifford? Because we just talked about how Mike Yurcich is really good at getting the best out of the quarterback that he has. Now, Sean didn't play great, I don't think, in 2020, but when we saw him healthy, tough kid, not afraid to stick his nose in there. He's got plenty of arm. He's experienced. He's a smart kid. He's deceptively fast. So maybe is Penn State in a little bit better shape at quarterback than most fans realize?
I would compare it to Northwestern a couple of years ago when Fitz finally decided to dump his offensive coordinator, who Mick, I think his name was Mick McCall, and he'd been kind of conservative, but had not done. Northwestern had either gotten through transfer or recruitment some very highly regarded quarterbacks, but they ended up for 4 years with kind of a loaf of Wonder Bread named Clayton Thorson. And you remember Clayton Thorson, right?
I love your descriptions. I love you. You said Barcalounger one time to describe a quarterback. Loaf of bread. There was another good one you had. I can't remember them all, but they're always spot on.
He was kind of Jack Cohn, not a flashy guy, but at that point he was a senior, and they got a new coordinator, and Clayton Thorson turned into a good enough quarterback to win that division, and they actually gave Ohio State a run for their money in the championship game. So I think with a new coordinator, sometimes you get so many, your head starts spinning with all the different leaders you've had, like the wide receivers at Penn State.
Yeah.
I mean, you can understand how they might be bewildered after 4 of them. Now they're going to have Stubblefield finally as somebody for a consecutive season. I think this coordinator switch could really help. We're putting a lot on Yurcich, but I could see how Sean Clifford could benefit from this switch.
Yeah. So I'm real fascinated to see, especially since it looks like they're going to I don't see any way they don't have some representation of spring practice. That'll, I think, help as well. That's something that Kirk didn't have, and I think Zoom meetings only go so far. I think on-field instruction, in-person instruction, having the receivers and quarterbacks around, I think that'll definitely help.
Kind of like this one. If we had an opportunity to crack pads for real, you and me.
Who wouldn't want to see that, Dave? Who wouldn't want to see that? All right, we're about halfway through, Davey.
Remember the Millen thing and the Millen of football life with who was it? Randy, who was doing his recruitment from Maryland? Randy White.
Yeah, Randy White, and Randy White came in from Maryland. I think he was with the Cowboys. He went into Andy Molosky's office, and Millen tried to test him, and they arm wrestled. And it didn't go so well when Randy beat Matt, and Matt got
Matt came across at him and got all pissed off, and Randy lifted him up by his neck and said, "In the spring, in next year, we'll go for real."
Of all the Matt Millen stories, it's got to be, if it's not number one, it's like 1A. It's really a great.
I know, it's true.
And it's so believable. You know it's not. You know he's not even embellishing it because that's
they had Randy White on it. You know, they had. If you watch a football life,
only Matt Millen would try Randy White. Only Matt Millen would try Randy White. Come on.
That's what a great story. And his father leaning over his mother because who was it? Bill Mallory was in to recruit him from Colorado.
Yeah.
And he said, Mr. Millen, your son's a prick, and we need pricks at Colorado.
Daddy called me a prick. He was all excited.
And he says to his wife, Matt's a prick. That's good. That's good.
Okay, Davey. Hey, this isn't necessarily Penn State related, but I bet you Penn State fans are going to want to hear about this. Is it just me? Why does Urban Meyer always think he can play by a different set of rules with some of his talent acquisitions or coaching hires? I just feel like it's the same story. He never really learns from previous, just asinine mistakes. Like what's going on with it? The Chris Doyle.
Do you know anyone in life who keeps surrounding him or herself with people, the supplicants, I guess, of people
just
who
yes, man. I think everything you do, they won't go.
Yeah. Do you know people like that, and how if people don't say yes to them, then they switch them out. Yeah. They cross them off. I think he's always done that. And further, when things got rough, he is when the posse got close to him in Florida, he quit. Then he miraculously recovered, when the Ohio State job came up months later.
Yeah.
He had health issues this time when Michael Drake, the president, challenged him. He couldn't get that suspension overturned, the 3-game suspension. You remember that?
Yeah.
For the Zach Smith event. And he quit again. And, both times he claimed health issues. I'm sure he's had health issues, but his main issue is not getting his way. That's my read on it.
Yeah.
Well, you're an NFL guy. What did you think when you heard this story? For people who weren't paying attention or when got
I think
by,
Penn State fans have a pretty good idea.
Chris Doyle was the Iowa strength coach, and he was ousted over the summer for all sorts of rather wacky things that he said to Iowa's black players that were racially either offensive or suggestive or just stupid.
Yeah.
And Urban thought he'd be fine for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like he's talking about tone deaf. You wouldn't try that in college, but you would in the NFL. Like those guys are going to let you slide. I mean, what are you thinking? And you know about NFL players probably a lot better than I do. So what would your read? To me, it just smacked of a guy who didn't know quite where he was yet, and it bodes ill for his future. Kind of like he might be a Steve Spurrier or a Nick Saban in the NFL. Really good coach who doesn't translate, right?
It smacks to me of a guy that literally he has blinders on outside of just winning, coaching, and developing, but he doesn't really think about the human side of anything, like nothing. And it was you could have literally taken bets how quickly. I guess Doyle ended up resigning, but that was probably, there was never really anything from the Jaguars saying, hey, we messed this up, should have thought it through better. I think Urban actually defended it, saying he vetted the situation and he didn't see any problem at all. And then I think that's when he doubled down, Dave, and that's when everything just blew apart.
Yeah, well, he flat out lied about the Zach Smith thing. You were there in Chicago, right?
Chicago.
Yeah. I mean, he just flat out lied about it. And then he was caught in a lie. And
he still got away with it, kind of.
You could debate whether Drake whether suspending him for 3 games was the right move, but he's the president of the university. And this kind of thing flies at a much higher level, a atmosphere than is his ballywig. You know, he needed to understand that, but not to him, because he's been facilitated his entire career, no matter where he's gone. I mean, certainly at Utah, then to my reading at Florida and Ohio State. I mean, his whole career, because he's a very, very important coach. Well, you know, and the NFL, it's a player's game. In college, it's a coach's game. I think you can say that both about the NBA and college basketball, the NFL and college football. And I think he's about to find out.
Yeah, I just was real curious, because I know that you probably, when you saw that play out, I'm sure you had some kind of reaction. I just wanted to get yours. I wasn't sure. Did you write? I didn't know if you wrote about it or not, so I just wanted to ask you.
Oh yeah, I wrote a whole column.
Sorry,
on exactly that. Yeah.
All right, let's close this blue-white breakdown with a fun little thing I like to call Dave and I Talk Favorites. So in the last 10 years, I'm going to ask you for not your 3 favorite players at Penn State to watch in the last decade, but 3 of your favorite players, because I'm sure you have more than 3. So I want to see if maybe between us we can talk about 4 or 5 Lions, because I'm sure our list will differ. So from like 2010 on or 2011 on.
Why don't we call it the Bob Flounders era, from 2002 until?
No, because we can do a different thing then down the road when we're stuck on.
It could be a Bob Flounders gala entering your 20th season.
Plus, my list only goes back 10 years, so then I'd have to make another list, Dave. So give me 2 or 3 guys you just love. They didn't have to be the best players on the team, but man, you love watching them play at Penn State. We've done this before, but I just want to see. I don't think everyone's heard some of your takes. Just give me what's the first guy that comes to mind?
Actually, you know, the first guy that popped into my mind was Allen Robinson, because
it's a great one.
During a kind of an arid, dry period when O'Brien needed some excitement, needed a guy to lift up that offense. And I mean, he made some spectacular plays. Of course, the last one against Michigan, and he's still doing well. Did he leave the Bears? Is he gone, or what's going on?
He's like the prime free agent. I think he
hasn't left yet.
He's about to get really, really, really wealthy, and he's earned it.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't played with a good quarterback in the NFL.
No, that's what I was getting to. I mean, Mitch Trubisky, and he's still
Blake Bortles.
This guy has not played with A1 quarterbacks basically his whole career, you could say, or situations. You know, I'm not going to put all that on Christian Hackenberg, because Christian Hackenberg had no protection his last season, a lot of his time at Penn State. But yeah, he has not had an optimum situation, and he's had to be the guy for a lot of his time, and he's just done it anyway. So he would be one. Another receiver, Chris Godwin, would be my second pick.
Also set to make a lot of money. I think his contract's up as well.
Yeah, he's looking to be gone from Tampa, correct?
Well, I mean, he's got if they pay him, like I wouldn't go anywhere. That team looks like it's pretty solid for a little while. Tom's going to play for another 17 years, so why would he leave?
But do the Bucks have no choice but to?
Well, I mean, you talked about it. I think they've already paid Mike Evans, and I think they like Tyler Johnson. You talked about him.
Mm-hmm.
It was a steal, and they got Scotty Miller, who made the play against the Packers. I mean, I wouldn't let Chris Godwin out of there. Bruce Arians says he won't, but he's not in charge of the Bucks cap. So
to me, when you have one of those guys who can get way downfield, they both had a quality that is vastly underrated for a deep, especially an X receiver, who can get downfield, judge a ball, and use his body. Yeah. Not only rise to top end a ball, high point a ball, but use his body to ward off. Michael Irvin was great at that in the NFL.
Was. Very good.
Kind of an acrobat as well as a guy with great hands, and that's what Godwin was. I mean, he made so many plays like that, where he would physically muscle, almost muscle catches into his hands and then catch them.
Yep.
That's so valuable for a quarterback to just be able to throw a ball up in 50-50, a 50-50 ball, and have trust that your guys can not only bat it away if it's really not catchable for him, but a lot of times catch them. And I think Trace McSorley really, really benefited from that. And the third one would have to be Barkley. I mean, my God, that's an obvious answer, but geez, you can't. We'll never see. That'll be the old NFL films. I wonder, Bob, if we realize what we've watched in the last 3 years.
He can never be what he was coming off that serious knee injury, but I hope he's close. Yeah,
I mean, it's not Gale Sayers 50 years ago when. Yeah. What do you got? He got hurt in 1968, and yet he had a couple of really good years after that. But you could see he wasn't the same.
Yeah, I don't think medical science was really ready to repair that ACL back in the late 60s, and they probably
that's what I'm saying. But still, he turned himself into a different kind of runner, almost like a fireballer. If it has to be, he's making an appearance. See, you
found him.
He's been sleepy.
He's like, Dad, I didn't go too far from you.
Nick's home from college. So he's been staying up with Nick till like ungodly 3 a.m, 4 a.m, and then he's sleepy. Are you sleepy?
He is sleepy. It's noon. Oh my gosh. Look at him.
You've been hanging out with Mom? He's sleepy.
He should have his own podcast, Dave. Honestly, I don't know how we'd work it out, but I'd be willing to sponsor him.
Look at that face.
How do you say no to that face? Look at him.
See, when he yawns, he does that thing where he snarls. He's funny. They're all different. Yeah. But Barkley did stuff that you haven't seen. I mean, have you seen a college back do that kind of stuff? We used to struggle for a comparison in all of college football in our years.
Yeah, there really was. It's really hard to. It
was kind of like maybe LaDainian Tomlinson, or the combination of speed and power. Tomlinson at TCU is kind of what we ended up with, but there really wasn't a good comparison.
The things he did in the moment to evade contact, with the leaping and the jumping and the spinning and the way he cornered, just an amazing player. Dave, real quick before we go, I'm gonna give you 3 of my favorites, and they all played together. They all played together on the 2012 Bill O'Brien defense. It was actually Ted Roof's defense. Mowdy, Hodges, and Hull. I love watching all of them play for different reasons. Mike Hull actually was even better when he was with James Franklin and when he played in 2014, when he almost made every tackle that season.
Well, I was a huge Gerald Hodges fan, man.
Hodges, I loved the way that he played. He played so hard. Michael Mowdy, same. I wish he never had a knee injury, but he was a phenomenal athlete. And Mike Hull on that defense actually made some very big plays. A little bit undersized, but he didn't back down from anyone. I just love the way they played. I thought they were a big reason. Bill O'Brien was an offensive guy first, and he had Allen Robinson, and eventually he would get Hackenberg. But those 3 linebackers had, I think, a pretty big say in how that 2012 season played out after the 0-2 start. That was a pretty good defense. I really only felt like Ohio State with Braxton Miller was the only defense that really could kind of get the better of them. Even the Wisconsin game that year, they couldn't do much. You know, they went out to Nebraska in the Matt Lehman fumble game, and they gave Nebraska's offense a hard time. I thought that was a good defense, and I thought those guys really, they really represented the standard of linebacker U. And for different reasons, they were all NFL linebackers, but it's rare to see 3 of them like that.
What's become of Braxton Miller?
I don't know. He became a receiver. He transitioned to receiver. I think Bill O'Brien drafted him with the Texans.
Yeah, remember we thought he was going to become Antoine Randall.
Yeah, he wasn't quite big enough, and he could never. You could never stay healthy. The thing about Anquan Bolden is he could play. He must have had the highest pain threshold in the league because he played through everything.
No, Antoine Randall. I thought Braxton Miller.
I thought you meant Anquan Bolden. I'm sorry.
No, Antoine Randall. Yeah.
Yeah, he was another good one, but Braxton Miller, just kind of a tweener, you know. His best position was running back. He could play quarterback and played it well, and then they made him a receiver, I think, just because his arm wasn't good enough and he was a little small. But all right, well, I know you got a German Shepherd to attend to, and we're about out of time, Dave. But as always, I enjoyed it, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Probably to talk about Urban Meyer again. No, I'm just kidding. We'll talk about some other stuff. Hopefully spring practice is going to get started.
Might be talking about a new Penn State basketball coach at that point.
We can do that. We can do that. I wouldn't
mind.
Maybe
not, though.
Huh?
Maybe not, though.
All
Might
right.
take longer than that.
All right, Davey. Talk to you in a couple weeks, man.
See you, man.
See ya.